Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you are all in the best of health, Animan, and I hope life is treating you well. Sunday, I went for my usual morning runs, and as I was running, I literally just got overwhelmed with this feeling of gratitude. And I remember just, telling myself quietly that, Ya Allah, I am so grateful that I am healthy and that I'm able to run this long distance, you know. And subhanallah, after my run, I went back home, and on my way home, not far from where I live, there was a woman who had clearly passed away. So there was an ambulance and a police van right next to her, and she was covered with her blankets. I'm assuming it's her blankets, and you could still see her feet lifeless, and part of her pants and her socks, right? And I usually don't look at sites like that because I have a photographic memory. Images like that just don't leave my head. And so I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about her. You can imagine my run was about an hour. So in a span of an hour, this woman probably left her home, to come to work, and she just, died and passed away. While I was thinking about this, and while I was thinking about today's podcast, I remembered a poem that we did in high school. I think it was in grade 10. The poem was titled "That Be Not Proud," right? The author's name is John Donne, right? John Donne. So this poem was, so we were basically doing this poem as one of those literature poems and so on. And this poem, I found it so intriguing. I love literature. I loved literature since high school. I found this poem so beautiful because I never thought of death in the way that he wrote about death. We all fear death, right? Death is really something that really frightens us, because honestly we do not know what comes next after that, right? And we do not know when our time, when it will be our time, and so we obviously, it's normal for us to be frightened and to be just scared of not knowing, right? Just being scared of the unknown. And so in this poem, I'm just going to read the poem, and then I'll discuss it, right? So the poem is titled "That Be Not Proud," and the poem reads: "That be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. For those whom thou think thou dost overthrow, die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. From rest and sleep which put thy pictures be, much pleasure then from thee much more must flow. And soonest our best man with thee thy go, rest of their bones and soul's delivery. Thou art slave to faith, chance, kings, and desperate men, and dost with poison, war, and sickness dwell. And poppy or charms can make us sleep as well, and better than thy stroke, why swells thou then? One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die. I found this poem, as young as I was, so beautiful, and I still find this poem so beautiful, because this poem is basically speaking to death, and it's telling death that why are you feeling yourself? Why are you so filled with pride? And why do you feel like you are it, when even you, death, will die? In fact, I feel sorry for you, death. Right? The writer is saying, why do you feel so important when even you rely on other things so that you can appear? Right? You rely on people to get sick. You rely on people to overdose on medication so that they can die. You rely on people, on kings, to give orders for people to be executed. Right? The author says, I feel sorry for you, you poor death, he says. Honestly, this poem is a reminder of that obviously death is not the end, as the author says, that us dying is not the end. So death has lost in that sense, because he literally just sends our body to rest, and then our souls moves on eternally, right? So death is not the end. Death is technically the beginning. But what I wanted to really just talk about today, honestly, was just a reflection of how short life is and how fragile life is. I was thinking about everything that's going on in the world, especially in South Africa, because obviously I'm living in South Africa, and people are fighting over a lot of things. There's so much hate going on, and I'm just thinking of how insignificant the things that we are fighting over are, because at the end of the day, we are all going to die, and we are all going to leave everything behind. You could literally leave your home and 5 seconds later fall down and die. This life is so short. This life is so short. And for us to live it the way we do, for us to be so occupied and so stuck to it, like a child holding onto a mother's leg, it's just so unnecessary, honestly. It's so unnecessary. I don't think life should be given the energy that we've been giving it, right? I don't think it should be that deep. We move around the world as if we are here forever, as if this is it. People are literally throwing away their morals and their values and their humanity and their empathy just because the economy just got a little bit tough, just because God has decided to put us through some form of trial, some form of test. People have thrown their humanness away. The hate that's going on in the world in general is so heartbreaking. The random killings is so heartbreaking. And all this is happening because we have forgotten that we are not an exception when it comes to death. We are not an exception when it comes to death. Death will find us. And I often imagine when death does find you or death finds me, how do we face God? How do we face God when just the day before you died, you took your humanity and you tossed it out the window just because you needed crumbs of bread? How do we face God? How do we write a poem like this author wrote, telling that, hey, you are not scary to me. I know where I'm going. I know after here, I know my eternal home is beautiful. Many of us fear death because we know what we are doing here on earth. And we know honestly in our hearts where we are actually going. We actually need to do better. We actually need to do better. I know I've spoken a lot about death on this past podcast. And honestly, it's because death is so inevitable, right? Death, we have to confront death. As much as we like to ignore it, we have to confront death. And so we have to talk about it, especially when we begin to forget where we are going. I know there's so much distractions, there's so much entertainment, there's so much going on in the world that is distracting us from the reason why we are even here in the first place. We forget where we are going, and we forget that this is not the home that we should be building. Like, this world is not the home that we should be investing to a point where we toss out the very values that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed. I listened to this TikTok video, and this lady was just speaking. She's Christian. She was speaking to another lady, and she was telling that lady that, you know, the devil doesn't force us to not know God, right? The devil doesn't come to us and tell us not to believe in God. She says that when the devil went to Eve, when the devil went to Hawa, the devil didn't tell her, you know, he didn't try to convince her that God did not exist or forget God. No, what he did was make her disobey God, make her do the things that God said she shouldn't do. And that is what the devil has been doing ever since. The devil is not trying to convince you that God is not real, or God does not exist. He knows that you know that God exists. He knows himself that God exists. He believes that God exists. He believes in the prophets and so on. What the devil is trying to do is get you to disobey God, is get you to disregard everything that God has basically put in place. He's trying to get us human beings to toss out all the values that has been taught to us. And you wonder, why is the world in so much chaos? Why is the world just a mess? It's because we have agreed to disobey God, to disregard anything that He has taught us. We've agreed to follow in the footsteps of Shaitan, in the footsteps of the devil, and we've completely forgotten where we are going. How many of us even think about that as often as we should? We literally live, especially if you are healthy and you have money, that is so hard to pass through your mind, because you feel like you are healthy, you got numbers to your days. But it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. We honestly need to do better, and we need to come back. We need to come back to the ways of God. We need to come back to obeying God and being conscious of God and being aware that God is watching, and being aware that will find us at any given moment. At any given moment. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us for our shortcomings. May that be a constant thing in our mind, so that we do not forget where we are going. And may we fight and resist the temptations and the whispers that Shaitan whispers in our ears. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.